start. So very warm welcome, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us for our seminar today. Oh, actually, it's a webinar, right? It's a digital seminar, so it's a webinar. My name is Natalia Kucirkova. I work as professor at the University of Stavanger and at the Open University. And I also lead a network of researchers called WICIT, who work very closely with various EdTech organizations. And today I'm delighted that we'll hear from three very inspiring speakers who I had the pleasure and privilege to watch from distance in terms of the work that they have been doing in these academia industry partnerships. So we'll be joined by Fiona Jelley from the University of Oxford, followed by Blatt from Harvard Graduate School of Education, and then we'll hear from Imogen Casebourne from the University of Cambridge. And I think we are in for a real delight. So I myself very much look forward to their presentations and hearing how they work with the industry, what were the lessons learned, what were the things that we can all take with us for our own work, whether we are coming from the research side or the industry side. And there'll be some time for questions towards the end. So please feel free to save your questions so that we can ask our panelists towards the end of the session. So without further ado, Fiona, if you would like to start, and after Fiona, we'll have Joe and then Imogen.
Great, thank you very much, Natalia. Okay, I hope I am now sharing my slides with you all.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. So hello, everybody, and thank you very much for the invitation to speak today. I'm going to talk a bit about the Learning for Families Through Technology, that is the LIFT project, which is a collaboration between Ferrero International, who are our funders, the game developers Gameloft, and our research team at the Department of Education at the University of Oxford. So our research is funded by the Kinder arm of Ferrero, who have an app for children called A Play-Do. Now, our overall research is separate from the app in that we are answering research questions that are of broader interest and importance to research and practice. But we do use the app as a research platform, and that's what I'll be talking about today. And we have access to its millions of users worldwide, which is a great resource. So I'll talk about some of the ways in which the LIFT collaboration enables us to use A Play-Do as a research platform that has benefits for all members of the partnership. Okay, so the aims of the LIFT project, just to give you a sense of what it's all about, are to, here on the slide, to benefit society through cutting-edge research to understand how children learn through technology and how the design of apps can best support that learning, and to help families support their children's learning. We've developed a research agenda that focuses on three main areas of work: children's vocabulary learning, children's creativity, and family-child interactions. And all three of these research streams are underpinned by learning analytics, that is, using the in-app data from A Play-Do users. Today, I'll give an overview of the work relating to the family-child interaction stream there, which is often called in the literature joint media engagement. And essentially what we mean there is two people or more using digital media together and the interactions that occur during that. So here, this slide just shows the research cycle that is enabled through our collaboration. So we use existing research evidence to design activities for the A Play-Do app that are aimed at being educational and engaging. We then gather data through evaluation, and that's both from the A Play-Do users worldwide, but also smaller scale in-person evaluations of the specially developed or enhanced activities. And this feeds back in to help us improve the design of A Play-Do further to benefit the children and families using it. we also gain useful information to add to the overall research base to help achieve these benefits for children and society more widely. So why joint media engagement then? Well, we know that preschool children can and do learn from media use, but there are some important caveats. The effects seen are largely for quite narrow skills like phonological awareness and counting, rather than broader domains of learning like reading comprehension or problem solving. Also, most research identifying benefits has been based on higher quality apps developed by researchers, when actually App Store reviews show that most apps that are likely to be used and available to children will actually do little to support their learning. We also know that high levels of media use at home are associated with poorer growth in oral language skills in young children. And since early language skills are one of the strongest predictors of later literacy and wider outcomes, this could have serious long-term consequences. Fortunately, there's something we might be able to do, because studies also show that children learn more from apps and ebooks and digital games when they use them with an adult rather than on their own. And this joint use can mitigate some of those negative effects of high media use. Okay. So working with app developers, we're particularly interested in the potential of app design to address this issue. So is there room for improvement? We know that a lot of children typically use digital media alone, almost a third of preschool children in England. And here we have a 2021 study that rated the 100 most downloaded so-called educational apps on a 3-point quality rating scale. So we can see that in terms of how well the apps supported social interaction, 87% received low ratings, and in fact not a single app in the ones surveyed was rated as good quality. So good quality in this context, meaning that the apps actively supported parent-child interaction or gave ideas of how to transfer learning to the real world. So all in all, most research to date has focused on children's solo use of apps rather than joint media engagement. And we actually know very little about how apps in particular might shape, how we might be able to shape joint media engagement through digital design. So this was the starting point for our research agenda on the LIVED project. This gives an overview of our key research questions and the different methods we are using to answer them. So first of all, we have carried out a survey to explore what joint media engagement looks like in a Play-Do users, and which kinds of child and family characteristics influence joint media engagement. We've also reviewed previous research to gather evidence on the ways that digital design can influence joint media engagement, either positively or negatively. And then we're using the findings from both of these strands to try to improve joint media engagement through digital design. So I'll now just briefly say a little bit about each of these areas. So one of the great things about this collaboration with Ferrero and Gameloft is having access to a huge population of app users. We surveyed a Play-Do users with children aged 3 to 7 years in 6 English-speaking countries, and we received around 1,600 responses. We asked questions about the characteristics of the families, how often they engaged in joint media engagement and what that looked like, and also parents' attitudes towards technology and joint media engagement. So we found that rates of JME were quite high, which is not surprising since we were surveying app users. 46% there in the chart said that an adult joins their child often, almost, always, or always. But we've still got around a third of children 36% over this side, who were only joined sometimes or rarely by an adult. The other key finding was that attitudes really matter. By far, the biggest predictor of joint media engagement from this survey were the attitudes of the adult. They were more likely to join children in digital activities when they had positive attitudes towards joint media engagement itself and less negative attitudes towards technology in general. So in summary, there's quite a bit of variation in joint media engagement behaviours and certainly room for growth. And there is the potential for raising awareness of the importance of families using media together in order to encourage more joint media engagement. The next step then was a systematic review and a meta-analysis, essentially to gather and synthesize all the available evidence on the effects of digital design features on joint media engagement. So from our earlier reading of the literature, we knew that the evidence was quite mixed, so compiling it systematically would give us a clearer idea of what is already known and what we still don't know. The key question then in our review was, can adult-child interaction or joint media engagement behaviours be shaped through digital design features? So we focused on specific design features in apps, digital games and ebooks for children aged 2 to 7 in studies that had directly assessed the impact of a feature or set of features on joint media engagement. This resulted in 18 articles, which just goes to show how emerging this field still is. The key findings then, to cut to the chase, were that it is possible to shape adult-child joint media engagement behaviours through design features. The strongest evidence seemed to come from embedding dialogic or conversation prompts into ebooks. And the other important finding was that the only studies which found effects were those in which researchers had developed the apps themselves or enhanced commercial apps. And this is especially relevant given we're talking about academic industry collaborations like ours with Ferrero. Since most of the current research then focuses almost exclusively on ebooks and very little is known about whether and how we could enhance joint media engagement in other apps and digital games, this led to our next step, because given that preschool children spend twice as much time on average playing games on mobile devices than reading books, we felt it was important to establish whether joint media engagement could be successfully enhanced outside of an ebook context. So this leads on to what we're doing now, which is working to fill this gap and see whether we can use conversation prompts to enhance adult-child conversation in activities other than ebooks. So Draw and Chat is based on an existing creative drawing game within a Play-Doh. It's designed to support interaction and conversation between preschool children, so roughly 3 to 5-year-olds, and adults, by including conversation prompts for parents within collaborative drawing activities that they can both get involved in. There's also an introductory video to highlight the benefits of a parent or an adult joining the child in media use, and it also explains a bit about how the activity works. So this is still in its quite early stages. We've begun a small-scale trial in which we're asking parents and their preschool child to use the app together. So they first use a version of the app without the video and the prompts, and then they use the Draw and Chat version, which does include those features. And we're testing whether the Draw and Chat version supports parent-child interaction and conversation by looking at things like how long they spend using the activities together, how much conversation they have, and the quality of that conversation. So it's an exciting stage of the work. We don't know yet whether the benefits will transfer from the ebook context to other activities, but hopefully we'll have some findings to share in the near future. So I will just end by summarising some of the benefits of our collaboration, not all of which I've spoken about today. So we have produced design guidelines for app development to inform future plans for Play-Doh, but also for app developers more generally. We've embedded research evidence into app design and are evaluating whether that has an effect on families who are using it. Generated and are generating research evidence so that we can inform wider knowledge about how to support children's learning through app design. And we're building our engagement work with the aim of having benefits for families, for example, to encourage more child and family engagement, social interaction, and promote the learning that can happen with apps, again, both for Play-Doh users and more widely. And finally, we're developing a research data infrastructure that can be used to test new and innovative content. So I think, sorry, I've gone a minute over perhaps, but just to acknowledge the LIB team at Oxford. Obviously, this is all a big collaborative effort. We're led by Professor Victoria Murphy, and we're now involving quite a sizable team of researchers working across those strands. So thank you very much.
Lovely, thank you so much, Fiona. And I really liked the way you described this importance of embedding the research-based features into the design, how important that is in terms of what researchers can achieve when we work together with also commercially available apps. I'm thinking while Joe is preparing for his presentation, we can cover a very quick question from the audience, which was about whether you include a group with reading normal books, so print books, as parents are reading and you're observing them.
In the
I presume this will
current
be...
study. Yes, we are not. In fact, the current study, the current evaluation is really just zooming in on this app, and we're trying to test very specifically the effects of including the prompts versus not including them. But I agree that many studies do include a completely offline group as well. So that would be an interesting thing to think about later.
That's right, a follow-up study.
Exactly.
Yes, that's great, thank you. And now we have the pleasure to listen to Joe Blatt from Harvard Graduate School of Education. Over to you, Joe.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay? Oh, can you hear me okay, Fiona and Natalia?
Yeah, we heard you fine, yes.
Fiona, thank you. I thoroughly enjoyed your presentation, and as you'll see, there's a lot of similarities. So I'm going to go ahead and share. And to set the context for our work, it's important to know that there's really a literacy crisis in the United States, brought to broad social attention by the so-called 30 million word gap, the Hart and Risley paper showing the difference in language environments according to socioeconomic status. And then more recently, the recognition that so many of our children were reaching third grade without being able to read. So here at the Harvard Graduate School of Education, you can see our mantra is learn to change the world. We have a very strong early learning faculty and a long-running relationship with Sesame Workshop and the creators of Sesame Street. So these factors all motivated us to think about prevention instead of cure. That is to intervene early before most children start preschool and try to get into a position where the third grade reading shortfall didn't happen. We know that young children are social learners, and we know from prior research that high quality social interactions with children around play can happen with books or television or other media, as well as directly. So central to developing our planned intervention was the belief that most parents really want to see their children learn and help them prepare for success in school. But many parents think they don't know how to help their children. They think that teaching is the work of professionals. They may have had poor or unhappy or unfulfilling school experiences themselves, and they may be unsure of their own literacy skills. And of course, there's the competition for time with many parents, especially in lower SES groups, working more than one job. So, informed by literacy research by many scholars, but prominently my own HGSE colleagues, Catherine Snow and Meredith Rowe, we decided to build on pre-literacy foundations, that is the preparation for literacy. And research suggests that that involves promoting the skill of conversational turn-taking, serve and return, sustaining those conversations across multiple turns, producing longer utterances, extending the conversations beyond the here and now to talk about the past, the future, family members and experiences that are not immediately present, asking dialogic questions. Is anything that's happening in this story connected to your own life? And introducing new and more diverse vocabulary. So putting these determinants together, we decided to develop some apps that would engage parents in the pre-literacy work, but we didn't want work to be the operating concept. So we wanted this to happen in ways that are fun and that fit naturally into parent-child playtime. But in order to make that all work, we also knew we would need to include some coaching, both subtle and sometimes explicit through prompts, much as Fiona was talking about. And we decided to take advantage of the universally available device, the smartphone, which data show 98% of US families have, and using that smartphone to promote interaction, not as a handoff or pacifier for kids. We also decided that we knew that a single approach wouldn't necessarily fit all families. So we decided to place more than one bet, meaning we intentionally plan to create more than one app and to work with different companies. So we worked with GBH, which is Boston's public broadcasting station. Their research team worked with us to design the characteristics that we would think we would need in an app that would engage both parents and children. And we came up with this sort of character lineup of bright, whimsical, and cheerful characters that function well on a small phone screen. They have emotive eyes and they're capable of simple expressions. They represent multiple parent-child combinations, which are race and gender neutral, which is critical in our very diverse society. And they're able to conduct the kind of actions that are typical of kids, like jumping and dancing and walking and so on. So here is the home screen of the app that we created with GBH called Small Wonders. And to show you a little bit more of it, I'm going to stop sharing for a moment and actually show you a little bit of the app.
This is always an exciting moment, right? Presenting about technology, whether we manage to make the technology work. Yeah,
So here's
to...
you can see that we present kids and families with, in this app, with 4 choices, both stuff around the home and stuff outside. I'll just go to outside, and there's a series of activities associated with each one. A game, for instance, called Sit and Talk, where the activity is to try to match or diversify different pictures. So we say tap the photos to see which ones go together. And notice, as Fiona was saying, that it's really important to provide prompts, because it's not necessarily the case that a parent working with the child can think of the things to do with the app. So we make these prompts available. There's a lot more to do in the app, but I'm going to keep going for purposes of time. So I'm going to stop sharing again for just a minute and resume the PowerPoint. Oh dear.
I think we lost it now, the PowerPoint, Joe.
Right, I'm going to try that again. Sorry about that.
Try it again. Really great to see the example to concretize the ideas. Yeah, now it works.
Back. And the only other thing I wanted to show you about this app is that, if I can, there we are, is that there's also a grown-up section. There's the family play together with children, but also a grown-up section. And in the grown-up section, there are additional tips and activities for things to do that promote conversation around the house or in the neighborhood. And we also have an animation section, which actually models for parents how to use the app to encourage sustained turn-taking kind of conversation. But we also, as I said at the outset, wanted to not put all our place just one bet. So we also developed a different set of apps with a local production company called Fablevision. We did 3 with them. One is Photo Play, which allows parent and child to decorate family photos. We found that to be a very powerful way of encouraging conversation. A second app called Story Mixer, where we take familiar rhymes and then insert different words and try to make a game out of it. It turned out this was too complicated. So we actually are not releasing this one based on testing. And then one called Animal Antics, which I'm just going to very quickly introduce. We started with mood boards, trying to decide whether we want to be silly or kind of more simple and sweet, and decided on kind of more of a cartoony look. And then in the various stages of testing, we placed these characters in various settings on the phone to see which would be most effective. And then we worked out a scheme for allowing parents to use it directly in conversation with children. So I recorded a little segment here to see if I could show you how this works. The idea is that you choose a character and you can actually record your own speech as well as choose an expression. So let's see if this works. Oh yeah, I'm sorry. I was just going to say we got to this point through lots and lots of formative evaluation testing in daycare centers and with families of varied backgrounds. We decided on the animal look rather than the monster look through that testing. And now let's see if I can actually show you.
Pick a character to talk first.
So I picked the monkey to talk first, change his expression. I record myself.
Let's play with the truck.
I decided to keep it, that was okay. Now my child gets the other character, his expression, gets to record.
That might be too hard for me.
And decides to save that. And as you can see, there's a turn-taking mechanism there, the green squares, and prompts available at the top. So those are the features of the Animal Antics app. And that's the one we have published about in research that we did with 80 families in the Boston area. Here are some of the characteristics of those families. We actually sent a team of researchers out to homes in the area to collect both questionnaires and child assessments. This was done actually in parents' homes by our research team. As you can imagine, the second wave, which happened during the pandemic, we had to do entirely by remote video, but we were still able to conduct the research. And we did the standard sort of data reduction. We found that there was a lot of variation in how families use the apps, but the average was 15 minutes a day during the 4-week study period, and parents told us they enjoyed using the app. And in fact, they engaged in pretty frequent conversation. Here's some of the summary data. And you can see that most of the language measures increased over time between visit 1, which was baseline, and visit 2, approximately 4 weeks later. We were really pleased to see the significant increase in children's language complexity as measured by the morphemes per utterance and the other measures that you see here. So I'm just going to wrap up to say that parents found the app appealing. One of the reasons they did is that it allowed them to rehearse conversations that they could then take into the real world and continue with kids while they were in the doctor's office or in the library or on the bus. And children also found the apps appealing because they could hear their own voices and construct stories with their parents. So we feel that these results that we published in the Journal of Applied Developmental Psychology, as well as test results from the Small Wonders app, which we have not yet published, really do demonstrate that it's possible to transform smartphones from handoff devices to opportunities for parent-child conversations and learning. So thanks for the opportunity to share that work.
Thank you so much, Joe. What another great example of what can be achieved when researchers work directly with producers and embed the insights from extensive testing into the design. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I was really struck, as I'm sure you were, by the parallels and similarities Fiona demonstrated. I'm looking forward to learning from Imogen.
Yes, Imogen is our last speaker before we go to the discussion. And it will be another opportunity for us to hear how, this often abstract concept of academia-industry partnerships can be realized and what it actually looks like. So Imogen has another series of examples to share.
Great. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, we just need to have it in full presentation mode, and then it should be all fine.
Yeah. Is that working? Can you see?
We see also the presenter mode. So if you want to remove, or yes, that
is that better?
Now
yes.
It works. Perfect.
Perfect. Lovely. Thank you very much. So as Natalia said, I'm going to talk a little bit today about some different examples of working with companies and with industry. So I'm not going to focus on early years learning specifically, but I'm going to talk about some of the different approaches that we've taken at DEFI, the Digital Education Futures Initiative, which hopefully apply to people, to projects focused at all ages. So a quick introduction from me. I lead the Innovation Lab at DEFI, the Digital Education Futures Initiative. And prior to joining for quite a number of years, I worked for an educational technology company. So I'm aware of being a designer on the other side and the need for evidence and evidence-based information in developing apps. So I think I have both perspectives in that respect. DEFI is part of the Bridge, which is a translational research initiative at Hughes Hall, University of Cambridge, which aims to link academia, policy and practice. There are a number of other initiatives, the Cantry Library of Close to Practice Teacher Inquiry, and the Climate Governance Initiative, which aims to empower board members to take climate action. So at DEFI, we're focused on translational research and bringing together educators, policymakers, educational technology companies, and practitioners in a dialogue. And part of what we do is to convene groups, host webinars, and bring people together to facilitate that kind of dialogue. Because I think, as Fiona mentioned, many apps that exist may not be as evidence-based as might be ideal. But it's actually quite hard for many developers to get access to the evidence. So it's important to bring together academics and educational technology companies. One of the projects that DEFI has worked on was the World of Work Internships Programme that was sponsored by BT and Huawei and brought together schools and those companies, and children learnt how to tackle real world problems, learn skills, create presentations, share them back to the companies and get feedback. So it was a virtual internship program aimed at younger children than typically would be exposed to internship programs, to give them an idea of how future skills and work skills might come together with the curriculum. So it was an example of bringing together educational research, future skills framework. We undertook a literature review and identified 99 different future skills frameworks. But based on some of those, it was possible to design programs that enabled children to learn about future skills. As part of our convening work, we have an Entrepreneurs in Residence program, which brings together startups and enables them to meet academics and policymakers. Our first entrepreneur in residence was Zubair Jan Jr. Of ZNotes. And ZNotes is a community-driven online platform which aims to offer free access to high-quality learning resources and peer learning, and enable that sort of learning to be scaled and applied to under-resourced education systems, so young people on the ground are able to adapt and change it and localize it and act as the agents of change. As an entrepreneur, Zubair was able to get involved in meeting different leaders in the education world. He hosted one of DEFI's annual events, and also some brown bag lunches. So we now have Platonia, Piyush Ahuja. Again, this is a community-based platform currently in beta, a private beta funded by an Innovate grant, which enables people to make connections, to use learning as a way to meet, network, make friends, socialize, and find community. So that's one approach to working with industry, but I also wanted to talk about the design-based research collaborations that we've undertaken with educational technology companies. So we think design-based research is an excellent way for academics and industry to collaborate, because it's very active. It involves a research, a design problem, but it also aims to advance theory and understanding. So to give an overview of design-based research, we need to find a problem to solve. That might involve literature review, it might involve fieldwork and evidence gathering. We conduct an exploratory phase, again with literature review and fieldwork. And that leads to a number of design conjectures, which come together as a design framework. And then we have a number of steps of iteration and refinement, which may involve further literature review or further fieldwork. And finally, discussion And in the educational context, it involves a continuous investigation of optimal education solutions, a focus on improving or creating systems. Generally, there are 3 phases: analysis and exploration, construction and implementation, and evaluation and reflection. It enables educational technology companies to integrate evidence-based decision-making, and helpfully it's adaptable to changing environments, which is particularly helpful in the ever swifter changing EdTech environment at the moment. So just to go over those educational design-based research steps, typically it involves referencing design frameworks, literature, case studies, undertaking primary research. There's an implementation phase where it's operationalized into a teaching and learning practice, often in the form of interventions. There is an assessment phase where a range of tools are used to assess the intervention, and reflecting on those, reflecting on the implications of those are integrated into a new intervention, which can then be launched for a further iteration. This is another way of looking at it. My colleague, Dr. Kevin Martin, likes to say it's usually a bit more squiggly than that and slightly less simple, but we have the initial design, the revised design, and the operational design after a number of iterations. So that's an approach that we use for close collaboration and development. One of the a company that we've been working with on development is EdTech. And we engaged in an initial collaboration with them where we both worked on a design on their interactive platform, followed by a more extensive collaboration facilitated by a knowledge transfer partnership. So EdTech creates VR, AR, and AI-based learning solutions, both for businesses and for education. So these are mobile-based and they're immersive, they're easy to access, and VR and AR can help make intangible and abstract things much more tangible and easy to understand. EdTech believe in the importance of evidence-based and validated platforms and products. So we worked on them initially, looking at a dialogue-based approach for learning for people in business who are learning about future skills. And as part of the KTP, the Knowledge Transfer Partnership, we're now working on how to integrate artificial intelligence into that existing platform to support and facilitate dialogue. So just to talk a little bit about the Knowledge Transfer Partnership, this is a UK-based organisation which helps businesses and academia to collaborate together. So they offer support, and the way it works is that a graduate is typically employed to act as the centre person and help to convene the business and the academics as they come together to conduct research, to gather evidence, and to iterate designs. So we think that using a design-based research approach funded by a knowledge transfer partnership is an excellent way for businesses to proceed working with academia, because it offers an iterative design, an evidence-based design, but it also enables us to advance theory and to understand better how the design works. So what we're looking at with EdTech is we're looking at, we're going through a multi-month project. We're currently in the project exploration and the initial testing phase, and we're looking at how how artificial intelligence can support dialogic interaction in this type of immersive framework, how it can support people to interact, how it can support people to learn to talk together, and to practice various dialogic skills. And we're moving through that design-based research approach. And we're hoping that as we progress, we will have EdTech will have a platform, and we will be publishing some joint papers on the use of AI to support dialogue. So that's, I think that should be about to time.
Yes, thank you so much, Imogen. I know you were struggling with the cold, so special thanks
Yes.
for sharing your wisdom with us today. And thank you for elevating KTP's knowledge transfer partnerships. I don't know how widely spread that idea is globally, but I actually did one when I did my graduate studies back in the UK, so I can attest to the use of that as a good scheme to really mobilize these partnerships. And I have so many questions I would love to ask you, but I want to make sure that we first ask the questions coming from the audience, because now it's the time for Q&As. So anyone who is a part of this session would like to ask a question, feel free to type it into a Q&A box, and I'll just ask them in the order that they come. And the first one is for you, Joe, which is a quick question around the Story Mixer app, because you mentioned in your presentation that it did not quite work as you expected. Whether you want to reveal some more details about that?
Sure. I deliberately included it because I think it's important to realize that formative evaluation can sometimes lead you to realize that an idea that seemed great just actually doesn't work very, very well. The concept here was to take well-known nursery rhymes, Jack and Jill went up the hill, and then to progressively allow the kid to swap in different nouns and different verbs. And it seemed to us to be hugely funny, as well as a great way to promote back and forth turn-taking in the conversation. But it just turned out that as soon as you departed from the canonical form of the fairy tale or the rhyme, it just became too confusing for everybody. And in testing, we found that parents and kids alike were just kind of throwing up their hands after the first or second iteration. So we decided not to publish it. And just say one other quick thing, which is all of us, I think, have talked about iterative testing as critical to this kind of endeavor, and usually think of that in terms of refining to get closer to your original goal. But I just in this case realized that we weren't going to make it with that design.
And I think it's a great example of sort of making sure that there is a shared understanding of how these academia industry partnerships can work in terms of ethical research. You know, there is often the expectation that, or in some quarters, there is the expectation that research is some kind of confirmation of the positive outcomes that different technologies can have. But actually, as we know, research is a cycle. We learn all the time. There'll be positive, there'll be negative findings, and being able to commit to that kind of research approach is very important for successful partnerships. So that's a very good example of explaining that aspect. Now there is a question about industry partners who are research oriented, such as PBS in US, who often conduct internal research that is not intended for broader consumption. What are ways to encourage dissemination or discover findings that might benefit from further study by a university partner? There's a great question from an attendee. I don't know who wants to take it, maybe Joe, since you're unmuted.
Oh, no, I think one of my colleagues should have a turn. Okay, I will say two things quickly. One is that this question and the previous one both point to the importance of choosing the right production or research partner, and also structuring that relationship very carefully before embarking on the work. So, for instance, when we decided not to develop Story Mixer. Fortunately, we had an arrangement with Fablevision such that the commitment could channel into the other two apps that we did create. And then we also made a clear agreement that the whole process, including research and testing, was for public consumption, that we would publish and they would also have the right to talk about it with other clients. So it was a completely shared enterprise, which I think was important.
Definitely, definitely. And of course, pre-registration and other tools that we have in research to ensure that that integrity is there. Imogen?
Yeah, I think there can be agreements at the outset as to what the publication strategy and what the partnership will involve. And I one of the reasons I really didn't say but meant to introduce the idea of knowledge transfer partnerships is that for startups it can be unaffordable or difficult or challenging to engage in research. So I think, sometimes being able to apply for these types of funding, and I know they do exist in other countries, although maybe not all countries, certainly I'm aware of them in Mexico and some of the Scandinavian countries, these types of ideas that try to formulate a structure around which academics and EdTech companies can come together, and where it's clear what the different inputs are and what is expected.
That's right. And there is certainly a lot of good work happening internally in various organizations. So it is very much something that I think, as this participant was asking, that, there is internal research happening that could be shared more widely had we, if we had these partnerships in place with more industry partners. And certainly research is such a big multidisciplinary endeavor that the more researchers are involved in this kind of work, the more we can learn from each other. And then we have a question which I was expecting in terms of AI. It's so much on the top of the agenda for many people, and of course EdTech is not an exception here. So we have a question around the argument that EdTech and AI fail learning because it is very addictive, and other issues, of course. So all good up are just not as interesting. So is there any research to help EdTech back this up? And what is your framework of collaboration at each different phases? So I don't know who would like to start answering the question. I know that there was a mention in terms of how you looked at data and data reduction, Joe, in terms of, the pre-generation AI, how you've been thinking about summarizing data sets. I don't know if you want to tackle the question with that angle.
Well, I did put, that's great that you noticed that in the little bottom corner of the slide. I was just pointing out that the incredibly laborious tasks of transcribing video from 80 families and then doing the analysis through the various software tools that we had to do just a couple of years ago, I think will be enormously faster and less labor intensive with AI tools. But the more profound question that your participant is asking about how do we deal with the addictive quality of using it, and how do we make sure that people are actually engaging in creative learning with AI? Obviously, I think if Imogen or Fiona wants to claim some expertise in this area, I'd be delighted to learn from them. I think we're all really grappling and racing to try to figure it out. But with university students, which is the immediate learning audience that I'm engaged with, and I think colleagues as well, we're really pushing to encourage proper use. That is, we're not going to pretend that it's not there. We're not going to say you can't use it. I think that would be a very unrealistic stance. And instead, we're working on things like show us all your work, share the prompts that you're using, acknowledge what parts are from the language model and what parts are things that you wrote. And we hope to graduate students who have well-grounded idea about how to use AI tools going forward. How that's going to apply to the parent-child interaction of age 3 that I was speaking about earlier, I have had not any real wisdom at all. Good. Oh, Imogen does. Great. Let's learn from her.
Not wisdom. I certainly agree with seeing lots of guidance appearing across across governments and universities about, and journals actually. I don't know if you've seen the various articles about journal articles apparently having generative AI bits discovered to have generative AI bits in some of the journals that have been submitted, but we're seeing lots of guidance for the appropriate use of it. At DEFI, we recently undertook a big literature review looking at the ways in which AI can support people coming together and talking in groups. So AI as a group convener and as a collaborative convener of human interaction. And I think that's quite an interesting potential approach to AI. So there are a number of different studies looking at how it can help actually bring people together and facilitate dialogue. So I think that's perhaps an interesting avenue in considering ways in which AI can be used to facilitate learning.
Yeah, I agree. And I know that in the LIFT partnership, you have an emerging collaboration on this, Fiona. Do you want to say a little bit about that?
Yes, I'm not sure what we can say just yet, and it's not my I'm not particularly involved in that part of the project, but it will be really interesting to see how that yes, that emerges. I mean, essentially it's looking at the potential use of generative AI in the context of children's stories. So kind of a very interesting but very exploratory area at this stage. Yeah, the challenges around you don't know what the content will be, so how can you possibly create meaningful, when I'm thinking about parent prompts and whether they have a role within that, but if you don't know the content, how can you prepare meaningful prompts? I mean, it's there are a lot of questions I'm sure that will come out of the early stages of the work, but
absolutely.
And if I could just jump on the point Imogen was making about communication. One of the things we wanted to do in the apps that I showed that we weren't able to was to network parents who were using them with the idea that if you found something that really worked with your child, it would be exciting to share it with other parents and to basically learn from one another's experience. We weren't able to do that because the university was very concerned about family communication over channel that we were responsible for, what kind of moderation would be involved and so on. But I think, I hadn't thought of this, Imogen, but I think the idea that an AI monitor of some kind might actually help to make that possible. And I do think that kind of networking would be really great support, especially for parents who are less confident about using these sorts of apps.
Yes, and we also came across a number of AI introducers or network facilitators. So in addition to monitoring, there was AI that was intended to connect people up with similar people. So various matching AI to match children to tutors or people with similar ideas or similar ability levels. So that was an area of exploration, at least. Yes.
Excellent, excellent. And that's a great segue to just notify people that our next webinar will be actually looking a little bit into this question of AI and children's stories, but also children's stories on screens more broadly. So how do we make sure that we have more evidence-based approaches when it comes to children's use of apps and literacy platforms? So the link to the webinar is in the chat. And without further ado, I would like to just thank you all, everyone who attended, people who'll be watching this online afterwards, and a huge thanks to our wonderful 3 speakers today. So thanks very much, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Nice to
Thank
meet
you.
the colleagues.
Thank you
Thank you.
and goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.